Hello, and welcome to the, trailer for In the Company of Stars, my new podcast. My name is BJ Swain. I'm the author of the book Living Spirits, A Guide to Magic in a World of Spirits. I also run the blog Glory of the Stars and the website The Unveiled Sky. I've thought off and on since starting the blog about starting a podcast, and with things the way they are, with everyone home, getting to learn some new social contact technology, made it seem like a good time to experiment with that. So I've been doing a few interviews lately, and am really looking forward to getting those up because I think people will really enjoy them. We'll be talking with people about different elements of magic and the occult, and things that are related to that, and things that may be of interest to people who have those interests. One thing that I really like when listening to podcasts is when interviewers have a standard intro question or questions that they use to get to know the guest that's being interviewed and help the audience get to know them. Obviously, there are some guests where the audience is going to know them pretty well and know a good bit about them already, but that's not always the case, and sometimes there's things in learning about someone's background that you may have not realized, or that may be good jumping off points for conversation, or might inform some of the conversation that's happening later. So I think that that can be a really good foundation. So I've been experimenting with that in my initial interviews. The best question for that is obviously already taken by Gordon White over at Rune Soup, so I had to come up with a different way to ask people about their backgrounds, and so I came up with a series of 3 questions. Now, when I talk to guests beforehand, I kind of wonder if those questions might be a little bit sort of odd to think about if you haven't really thought about them before, and it might be a little difficult to formulate an answer that kind of crosses through as I'm asking the questions. So I had considered setting up a recording of myself answering the questions as an example for guests before they came on the podcast. I ended up jumping the gun and doing the first 4 interviews before I recorded that example because, like many people, sometimes I procrastinate things when they have to do with myself. But one of my guests said that she thought it would be interesting to hear my answer anyway, and people have been asking for a trailer or for some sort of preview of the podcast, and so I am going to go ahead and answer those questions. So, the first question is basically looking at the idea that most people, whether they believe in magic or not, whether they explore any sort of spirituality, whether it's mainstream or alternative, whether they even believe in anything, at some point usually encounter something that is mysterious or unexplainable, something that's inspiring or miraculous, or that makes them take pause and think, hey, maybe there's a little bit more out there than what I realized. Or they experience it and they kind of push it out of their awareness because it doesn't fit their psychic model. And so they don't want to adjust how they think of the universe, and so they just kind of move on. I think for a lot of people engaged in magic, that moment where they experience something that seems real and undeniable can be a moment that helps lead them into magic or help shape their magical path. Or even people not into magic, but people who are into mysticism or into some sort of direct experiential or exploratory spirituality, have those moments, and those moments deepen the way that we look for things and the way that we understand and explore things. So the irony about me answering this question is that the moment I always think of for something like that, something that was kind of a shock and awe moment, was not what got me started. I was sort of always drawn to magic from as far back as I can remember. When I was a small child, like toddler age, I was fascinated by monsters and by the supernatural. And I saw my first ghost or spirit when I was about 3 years old, and saw many other spirits after that, and learned to sort of interact with spirits naturally from engaging those spirits that would present themselves. So that doesn't stand out as my first oh wow experience, because it was just sort of what was the norm. And things of that nature, things that we experience growing up that are just treated as normal, aren't the things that stand out to us. I grew up in a household where we weren't actively magical, but I was still taught some basic magical things by my father, and I was taught to pay attention to extrasensory awareness and intuition and dreams by my mother, because she grew up having those experiences. She grew up with sort of the stigma of being a witch attached to her, because she was the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter. And she experienced elements of the sight, and when I experienced those as a child, it was treated as normal. My sister experienced poltergeist phenomena that was similar to what my mother experienced, and that was also treated as normal. I think I got the better end of the draw there. So for me, my moment that stood out was I was kind of meditating, praying in front of a Christmas tree when I was in probably towards the middle of elementary school. And as I was focusing on it and focusing on how beautiful the lights were and how that beauty seemed to express the depth of glory that was capable in the universe, and the sort of deep nature of light and its ability to inspire us to something beyond, I began to focus more and more on the lights and draw my attention into sort of a central light on the tree. And it had a plastic icicle encasement around it. And as my focus and my sort of inner joy and revelry reached its pinnacle, the light began to tremble and then violently shake. And there was no one, there was nothing in the room. There was no one that was in contact with the tree, and it was just that point on the tree that was moving, and it was a very clear physical moving object. And I was amazed. And I knew at that point that all these things that I was drawn to, all these experiences that I had of feelings and awareness and being able to see and know things, that there was a physical component possible to them also. That it wasn't just something where, okay, we can feel things about other people, we can know things about what other people are thinking or feeling, or know things about things that might happen, but we can also connect to the physical nature of the world and influence things. And so my initial comprehension of that was that it came through prayer and meditation and reflection. And I didn't have access to really start studying magical things yet. I had been experimenting with magic by things that I was learning from interacting with spirits that I would encounter, and from things that seemed like they made sense, and trying to intuit how magic could work prior to that point, and had some success with it. But that was more a point where it was less about a child playing and experimenting with the universe, and more a sense of, okay, there's definitely something, these results that I'm seeing must be things that are actual results and not just coincidences. So the second question that I ask stems off of that and asks, how did it shape your work at that time? Like I said, a lot of these experiences, they're going to drive us on to look for something or shape what we end up looking for. And so in my case, I was already looking for things. I was already hoping that magic existed, hoping it was something I could figure out, and was already kind of engaged in it in a very naturalistic way. So I don't think that this moment really shaped me yet, but I don't remember exactly the age I was at the time. But a couple years after that, I was getting to the point where I was starting to look for magic books and starting to look for ways to more formally learn magic, because I figured those must exist. There must be something like that out there. There had to be other people who had worked on trying to learn magic, there had to be people who knew it, who had traditions passed down to them, and so there must be books out there if there were so many stories that involved magic books. Like, why would those stories exist if books didn't exist? And when I began exploring and looking for that, I also began praying and meditating. I had read some books on meditation and on some elements of Eastern spirituality. I was about maybe 10 or so, and started praying for knowledge, praying for magic, and began to have sort of early inspiration about feeling energy and feeling kind of the underlying life force behind things, and learning to explore that and move that and channel that. And that was sort of the inspiration that my prayer and reflection was giving me. And I think that probably tied back to the Christmas tree light experience, because it was one that was based on prayer and meditation and reflection. Now, as far as how does that relate to where I am now, well, that's a huge jump, because now is almost 30 years later, which is weird to think about, that I'm hitting the end of my 30s now. But I've been through so many things and explored so many different avenues of magic at this point. I went through studying sort of the standard neo-pagan mass market magic that was available in the 90s. I don't like to acknowledge chaos magic influence, but I did read things on the internet about chaos magic and experimented with some of those, but I never went through a real chaos magic phase, but was definitely aware of it and influenced by it. I think there were some good things in there, and I don't think there's really any magician who was around in the 90s who wasn't influenced by it. Studied the Kabbalah, both in Hermetic and Jewish approaches, studied hereditary forms of witchcraft, studied contemporary forms of witchcraft, and obviously ceremonial magic, and then additionally more traditional forms of European magic. Did a degree in classics, studied a bunch of other religious things along with that, and have pretty much explored most of what I could as far as the things that are available in kind of the Anglosphere for magic. Not really versed in Eastern stuff, and only have some familiarity with some of the African-derived traditions. There are some that I'm interested in exploring more, but it was not something that I dove into like some people have dived into those recently. And going through all that, this is kind of the less ironic part as far as answering the question than the first question. What I kind of find as far as how it's gotten me to where I am now, with studying so many different things and having spent 13 years as an officer of an OTO body, and been around the OTO for 19 years, the AA for, I guess, 20 years. I find myself returning back to some of what was the magic of my childhood, of going back and just talking to the spirits in the area around me, getting to know the spirits that have a natural connection to me, exploring the spirit world with the help of spirits, as opposed to in a super formal, more static, structured kind of way, like modern ceremonial magic approaches things. So while I'm not really led back to that moment with the Christmas tree, I am led back to a lot of my childhood magic. I find that sometimes we go through exploring so many things, and we try to study so many things in such a formal fashion that we put barriers between ourselves and our magic, barriers between ourselves and the world around us, and it takes away from the vitality and the visceral nature that can be key to magic. And now I'm trying to look at the world in a way that approaches that again, approaches things a little bit more naturally and holistically, and embraces more of a living view of things than a static series of correspondences in tables and books. I don't think that knowledge is bad. I don't think that it's knowledge that we shouldn't have or shouldn't explore. But I do think that there are definitely elements of that knowledge that can distract us from being able to just reach out and touch the magic that's right there in front of us. And sometimes that's what we need to do. So, I hope that little exploration of my background was fun for people, or that it told you a little bit more about me. And hopefully, as we explore the backgrounds of the guests on the show and learn a little bit about what they're working on and what they're doing now and their views and ideas on magic, that will be fun for you also, and will help you learn some things. And so far, it's definitely helped me learn some things, and I'm looking forward to getting the show out there to everybody. So stick with us. It should be coming out soon, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Thank you.